All right,
Let me have your questions, bro.
question and answer time. Just gonna throw these at you out of nowhere. What was it like the day Simeon was born?
Oh man, that was one of the most beautiful days of my life. I mean, I'd been a dad for a while with Tyler, but I'd never been a father before. Um, and those are words that matter to a guy like me. I remember being in the OR, looking at Carissa. I almost passed out. I mean, I'm no I'm no stranger to blood. It's no big deal to me. Needles don't bug me, etc., etc. Um, but when I saw Carissa's blood on the floor, I started to panic a little bit because there was so much of it. I remember getting on the moccasins that they put over your shoes in the OR. And just then she said, "She's out. Look, Darrin, she's out." And I looked up and I saw this baby, this fragile little life, and it looked at me and then it stuck its tongue out at me. And I laughed. I laughed out loud. Carissa says she can still hear my reaction to seeing her, but I was shocked and amazed, in love. And while Carissa got closed up, I got to spend the next hour walking around the room singing to her. That was a huge turning point in my life. Um, and I fail to see how some people can't appreciate that for what it is. Um,
What's the best part about being a dad?
about being a dad, hearing your daughter be called the bully buster, knowing she got it from you. Um, seeing your son make wise decisions. Um, sharing that bond with someone special. Knowing that together you made this amazing kid, and that you've helped shape and influence another. All of that is equal parts powerful.
How do you make a good steak?
High heat, um, depending, of course, on how you want to do it. You do it my way. You want a good sear, so you want open flame if you can. Um, just until it's a little past so, you'll typically find. Um, but steak has often gone wrong in the seasoning. I mean, anyone can cook a steak 5 minutes on each side. That's easy enough. But the prep, and the cut of beef, that's the difference right there. As far as steak sauces go, I prefer a little more tart than sweet. Works better for me and my taste buds. But whatever floats your boat. I mean, anything from a pinch of salt to some of those McCormick things, they make a great steak seasoning.
Now,
Um,
you've been cooking a long time now for a lot of people,
yeah,
and every cook has something they ain't divulging. Now is the time. You got anything for us?
I'm gonna be honest. Butter.
Butter.
Quit using margarine. Start using real butter. It will make a huge difference. It will make all the difference when you caramelize something. Margarine doesn't caramelize. Most people don't realize that. You can caramelize mushrooms in butter, not in margarine. And a caramelized mushroom goes so much better on anything other than a salad than a non-caramelized mushroom.
You've traveled some in your life, places that your children, the rest of us, we need to see.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they?
Places I've been, Anytown, USA. That's a beautiful thing about America, is that in some places there are still towns that are uniquely them. They have a feel. They have an air. I went to a place in Georgia that in one city block we counted 6 different churches. And that was it. That was their downtown. It was tons of churches, just everywhere, churches. But it had its own feel. It was like no place you'd ever been before. Come by the Dalles and look at our downtown, and then go and compare it to other ones. You'll see that there is at least a remnant of the flavor of small town life in America, that Americana that seems so weird and so distant to today's youth. But specifically, I would have said the Jersey Shore, but since the latest storm, that's been wiped out almost entirely.
What was it like there when you were there?
It was a carnival festival. It was larger than life, and the people were decent. They weren't as rude as they're made out to be. I can say the Jersey Turnpike is someplace you ought to check out. I actually saw one of the Backstreet Boys at one of the rest stops there. Check out Seattle. Seattle is my kind of town. San Francisco is one of the prettiest but dirtiest towns you'll ever find. Miami's mean. And Chicagoans, they're their own brand of foodie. Look for special hot dogs. And never bet on the Cubs.
You have lived a varied life, is this true?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of different circumstances.
Yeah, I put myself in lots of different circumstances.
What are some of those, and what did you take away from each of them that made you who you are?
Ooh. And when you start talking about life experiences, I think about my choice in Seattle to take to the streets and come home to my parents. That cost me a lot, both heart and soul. I sold out bits of my humanity to stay alive when I was in Seattle. When I was done, there wasn't much left of me. Thank God I had my mom and dad to come home to. Because I was in a hurting spot. I also think about my decision to hit the road with the Rainbow family. I'm sorry to my mom for all the worried nights I put her through during that. But I'll tell you, I came out of all of that with that stage in my life a guilty conscience. And I think that was a big reason for my religious rebooting when I found out I was going to be a dad. I can't say that any one situation left me any one way, because it's all part of a continuing story that has led me to really understand the creature that I am, for bad or for good. And I think that knowing the bad means that I get to willingly choose the good now.
Some people say that you are the sexiest man in the world. What would you say to that?
I think they're wrong. I'm the sexiest man in the whole galaxy. That's the fact.
So, how did you and Carissa? What was it like the first time you met Carissa?
Oh man, that whole thing was so weird. Okay, you want me to be completely honest, right?
Yes.
Okay. First night I met Carissa, she asked me to bite her neck. And not just a little, but really hard. And I did. Still don't know what that was all about. And I thought to myself, she was crazy, and I told my buddy Mike he could have her. That was the first time we met each other, but I gotta add, because it doesn't, the whole thing doesn't end there. I don't want that stuck in everyone's mind necessarily. But Carissa and I, we met at a party. And after I left and told Mike that he could have her, I get a knock on the door about a week later, and it's Carissa. And she couldn't remember my name. She came in and she saw my plaque, and she thought, wow, this, because at first she thought, 25 years old, come on, you're not 25 years old. And I showed her my ID, and she was like, oh. And then I told her, yeah, I got an award as a firefighter. And she's like, whatever. And she came over and she saw it. She's like, oh. So now I had all this credibility backed up behind me, but I was still full of crap. She came over and asked me if I wanted to go out, just as a joke. And I said, sure. Something inside of me was saying, no, don't do it. But I just out of my mouth, sure. And next thing I know, I'm in a relationship and fighting for her.
What was it like the first time you met Tyler?
Oh, okay. So I've been seeing Carissa now for a while, and could walk from Sherry's to my place in about 20 minutes. Walk to Carissa's in another 15. Snow was starting to come on, and I go over to her place one morning after work. There's this little towhead in diapers. This little kid just with a bald towhead, and I look at him, and he has the biggest dimples. I sat with him. He and we got along real quietly, really well. And we sat and we watched a Chris Farley movie together. Which one was it? Black Sheep. We sat and we watched Black Sheep together. And he just sat with me quietly and calmly the whole time. And I thought I could really get to like this kid. We spent a little more time together, and as the winter went on and it started snowing and it was harder to walk in, I remember stopping and looking up to my deck in my balcony and saying, I can either go up there and get wrapped up nice and warm and go to sleep after a hard night's work, or I can keep walking and go see Tyler, who will keep me awake. And 9 times out of 10, I chose to go see Tyler. He was a big change in my life.
Yeah. What was it like the first time he called your dad?
I knew I had to get my life straight. Flushed my drugs down the toilet, threw away my paraphernalia. Never looked back. Those things. Let me say that I heard my dad's voice in my head, reminding me who I was and what my job was, and what it meant. You're Williams. You know what you've got to do. That's mainly what I heard. And I did. I finally believed that there was someone who could love me. Because a lot of what I did in the past was self-destructive, because I just didn't think there was anyone out there other than mom and dad that would really care.
What are the parts of yourself that you see in your son that you are most proud of?
Tyler and I are two very different people. He takes a lot after his mom, which isn't a bad thing at all. I've always told him to find his sword. And when he does, he's going to be a powerful man, because I think he has a similar sense of conviction as I do. I think he wants to stand for things. I just think he questions whether they're right or not sometimes, which I get. You know, it's good to be safe. But I think once that young man finds his sword and his self-confidence, he's gonna be a badass in his own right.
How about Simi?
Simi, she's already a badass. I don't have to worry about her.
What do you see of yourself in her?
Oh, the bully buster. You know, I see that, and I'm so immensely proud of it. The fact that she's willing to take the risk to take care of others says enormities about her character. I just hope she has more wisdom in using it than I did.
So you met Carissa,
Mm-hmm.
and what was it about her that made her the one to marry?
Oh man, that's amazingly easy, because I've just been over that in my mind recently. One of the parties I met her at, I think it was the first one, and it made an impression on me. Not immediately, but more of a one that I felt later. She had a Bible set aside on a bookcase on a lower shelf, but it was just enough set aside, like as an act of reverence, And I looked at her and I said, "Hey, what's that about?" She said, "Don't give me a hard time about that." I said, "Oh, I'm not. I just want to know." She said, "Well, I believe that." I said, "Really? Me too." With the other girls I dated, I always felt like I wanted to return home spiritually, religiously. But they wouldn't have anything to do with it. Here's a woman, shapely woman, beautiful woman, that believes in the Bible enough to have it out in the middle of her parties. I know that sounds ironic to most, but to me that's something I really appreciate. Um, and it wasn't until I saw that she had the mind too. And now I can have an intellectual conversation with her. You know, finding a smart person that you can carry on a deep philosophical conversation with and yet remain romantic with is few and far between. Most people understand that. But there she was. I was just waiting to see when the time was right.
You made her a Williams.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does it mean to be a Williams?
Carissa said it best at my uncle, on the way to my Uncle Bruce's funeral. We stopped at Olive Garden, and most of my aunts and uncles were there. And she said when she got out that it was like being in a lion's den where the lions are on your side. She felt protected. She felt looked after, and that's pretty much the theme of that I always got of being a Williams is you're a big cat. You're the big dog in the room. Why does that make a difference? Well, because it's supposed to automatically call you up. It's supposed to not just be this tag that follows you, but it's supposed to be a banner that leads you. And my family, I always feel like they've been that. They've been the people striving in their communities to make a difference. I mean, whether you go back to the service with the JCs that my dad did, or all the way up to the good that my cousin Dick does, and his wife Linda. The name of Williams, to me, is a thing of honor. Because not just anyone gets it. Maybe I'm lucky by roll of the dice that I got it. But I try to live up to it. And bringing Carissa on board into that, I knew she'd make a hell of a Williams.
Tell me about your mom.
What a peach. When I explain my mom to people, I say she is a beautiful, classy Southern lady, and you can't help but love her from the beginning. And so far, the only people that would dare try to prove me wrong in that are crazy, evil people.
What's one of your favorite memories from when you were a kid with your mom?
Watching Star Trek. We loved watching Star Trek together. My mom and I were TV buddies of a sort. I was always more of a Star Wars guy, but I couldn't help but love Star Trek because my mom and I were into it together. I guess good old-fashioned TV, like the Dukes of Hazzard, or Beverly Hillbillies, although that's when my dad and I watched together more. all of that. I loved hearing her laugh at Lucille Ball. I loved that.
What about your dad? Tell me about your dad.
Oh, jeez. You know, I understand him more now than ever before. I used to feel like I was more like my mom, but as I've grown up and he's passed, I see more and more and more of him in me. The good parts and the bad parts. He was tough as a dad, and so much tougher on Eric than he was on me. I couldn't imagine it. Um, but I remember he was always looking for someone to help bail out. He always wanted to be someone's knight in shining armor, and he was to a lot of people. And he got taken advantage of a lot for it. But his heart was always in the right place, I think. I tell you, he loved us boys, and he loved our mom. He didn't always know how to show it, but he did. Um,
Good memory with your dad when you were a kid.
Good memory with my dad. Riding on his motorcycle. I loved going for a ride with him on his motorcycle, even though it scared the heck out of me. He had this black Suzuki road bike. The same one that he got in his motorcycle accident with. I loved going for a ride on that. I loved sitting down and fishing with him. Oh, okay, here we go. The best one though was learning to eat raw oysters with him. I got in so much trouble until I tried my first one, and then I loved them. He spent all night shucking oysters for me.
You got two brothers.
Yep.
What was it like growing up with three boys?
You had to learn to be quick on the draw at the dinner table. Mom only fried 4 whole chickens at a time. No, Eric was always a great brother. He was always looking out for me, even when he was getting me to do stupid stuff, like launch off of his legs into the brick fireplace, or taping my fists up so that I could box with Jason. Jason and I were always pretty contentious, you know. I guess that's normal. But I learned to be tough. I learned to be cunning and a little underhanded. But all of those were lessons that served me well later on.
Someday, your little girl's gonna look to get married. If you were interviewing the fellow right now, what does he need to measure up to?
He has to be the kind of person that I could hand a match in a room filled to the ankles with natural gas and be confident that he won't drop it. That is to say, he's got to be wise. He's got to be wary. I don't care if he's rich or not. But he sure as hell better not have an entitlement mentality. I wouldn't appreciate that. I'd want someone that's kind and not lazy. That would probably be the 2 biggest things to me.
2 biggest things. Any pointers for when she's looking for a husband? Baby girl.
Guard your heart. Make him swim through shark-infested water to bring you a glass of ice lemonade. If he's not willing to do that, he's not worthy of you, baby.
And when your son's looking for a wife, what do you look for in a woman?
Well, the Bible says that a contentious wife is like rain during the summertime, which in a desert culture is a very, very bad thing. It's like a leaky roof. I think it's more direct when it says it. A contentious wife is like a leaky roof. Try to find someone who's not contentious with you. And when she gives you her trust, don't let her down. You'll be a good man.
Would you say you've lived an easy life, Darrin?
An easy life depends on which camera you're looking at it through, because there are kids in Africa that still protect livestock from wolves. And some people struggle just to get a clean drink of water. As an American, sure, based globally, but on an interpersonal level, no, it's never easy when you're sick. You know, things that a lot of people take for granted were harder on me growing up. I tried not to let it get in my way, but there's only so much of that you can do. Some things it just gets in the way of, and that's just the nature of it. But no, I haven't lived an easy life. I've lived a life full of support from some very respectable people. And these are people that you'll probably look around and see. Some of them you won't. But easy, no, not by most people's standard.
You proud of the life you've lived? Should talk
Yes, yes, I am proud of the life I've lived. Not proud of all the things I've done, but doing those things was a prerequisite for the life I lived. So maybe. Running with some of the people that I used to run with, not anyone could do it. Not just anyone could do it. And that isn't always a compliment. But I know that I chose a family life, chose a life of personal exploration, rather than settle in and stay that person. So yeah, I'm proud of where my life has come to.
You're wearing some clothes here. I don't know if anyone's caught on. It appears to have an elephant on it. What's that all about?
Roll Tide, man. Roll Tide. That's all you can say. The University of Alabama, one of the oldest, most proud traditions in all of college sporting, winning national championships.
Why is that so important to you? Alabama. What is it? What does Alabama stand for to you?
When I was 5, we moved up here, leaving everything that I knew culturally behind me, and sunk me into this world of festering Yankees. No, it was a way of keeping me tied to where I came from, to the values that made us different. That's what explained to me why I had to say yes sir to my dad, and I could get away with saying sure to my friend's dad. We had shirts made. One for Eric that said Big Bama, one for Jason that said Bama, and one for me that said Lil Bama. I was Little Bama. It was an identity thing. And not just that, but when you look back and you go, well, why should I be a fan? You look at all of the reasons there are to be an Alabama fan, from the mascot to winning national championships. It's all there. Tradition, heritage, remembering that I was set apart and I was different than the people that were around me. Back before the Ducks had any fans. It was just something that we held dear as a culture, and still do. Football is, in my opinion, is America's sport. They don't play it anywhere else. Well, maybe Canada, but come on. They're Canadian.
Let's talk about something. You were a firefighter, sir.
Yeah.
What did that mean? What was that like?
It was full of testosterone, and I wasn't cut out for it emotionally. I didn't like seeing or taking the risk of someone I know being on a call here in a small town. Not to mention I fell in love with a girl that didn't want me risking my life. So I laid it aside. I'll tell you, there's nothing more exhilarating, though, than getting ready to go into a building. That's incredible.
What's it like inside the fire?
You almost reach down into a zen space. At first, you're nervous and the adrenaline's rushing. And unless you're an idiot, the adrenaline is going to be rushing. But eventually you turn off the sound of the respirator in your head, and just feeling for the signs of life is, that's where all of your focus is. I mean, you got to keep in mind where you are as far as internally, so you have to keep your head about you. But it's pitch black. It's not like in the movies. You're on your hands and knees, feeling around the corners, looking for someone that's may have gone unconscious, checking the depths of all the closets for some little kid that might have thought that they'd be safe in there. Even looking for pets. But when you find someone, that's what makes it worth it. Unless there's some big 400-pound fat guy that you can't drag out, then you're pissed. But yeah, that's one of the most intense moments of my life, I have to say.
Memories of Tyler and Simi when they were little kids. Best ones.
Instantly, I think of Tyler. Just this little toddler, not even out of diapers yet, and he's learning his alphabet on the refrigerator magnets at Sundial Apartments, where Carissa and I, oh man, what a time in our lives. She was pregnant with Simi, and I was working out at the Hinkle. And one weekend I get up and I go into the kitchen, and we had just bought these like cupcakes or something. I can't even remember exactly what they were. Tyler would. And they were open, and like every one of them was picked through. And there was this trail of crumbs leading down into a chair set to climb up and down onto the floor. And I walk into the bedroom, and there's Tyler with like brownie all over his face and his hands. And I get Carissa, and I get her up, and I show it to her, and I'm like, Tyler, and he sits up, and I'm like, and he's like, what? I said, did you eat the brownies? No. He's denying it left and right with the evidence just all over him still. It was classic. Simi, that girl scared me to death falling down the stairs. She fell down the stairs at her grandma's place. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Because I saw her. She was up on her head. Simi, there's just so many. Because she was such an active child. She would interact with you. I remember sitting on the floor outside of Stanfield at Echo. That's where it was, Echo. And I remember sitting on the floor there feeding her when she was a little thing. And she would laugh and play. I remember her standing at her crib calling for me. I was her ayah. Because I would pick her up and I would play with her up in the air and go, oh, yeah, 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 and make these tickling noises. Well, she would get up from her nap and she'd stand on the edge of her crib and she'd jump up and down, ayah, 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 ayah. She wouldn't stop until I got in there. The other one was Simi. When I was working out at the Hinkle, I'd come home from work and I'd walk through the door, and as soon as I spoke, while Carissa was still carrying her, Simi would start kicking Carissa like mad and wouldn't calm down until I got next to Carissa's belly and said, it's okay, Daddy's home, and then she would calm down. So as soon as I'd walk through the door, Carissa would be calling for me to come calm Simi down. About, I don't know, when I was going to St. Mary's, we would walk this route coming back. I remember I would walk that way in the morning, and right as I got to the high school, I'd meet up with my teacher, Mrs. Walworth, and she would walk with me to the rest of the way to the school. And then I'd walk the rest of the way back in the afternoon. It was different though. It wasn't like it was today. I mean, geez, the streets were so much safer. At least they seemed to be safer. They felt safer. I don't know if they really were or not, but there was a different sense in the air. I wouldn't let my junior higher walk that distance anymore. Most places, maybe the Dalles included. But I really enjoyed that little bit of freedom I got. The having that time getting home, and I always knew I had to keep that time just to make sure I had my homework done. But that was also back when they had homework every night. Not anymore. Now a kid just gets online and does his homework for the week. But yeah, I walked this path right here, this section, from the high school down 10th to my parents' place for 4 years in high school, and a different path, but similar, in junior high. Although that was usually the Graham's place instead of my own. Walking with Graham was tough. That kid could walk fast and far. And I remember by the time I got to his house, I was always out of breath.